Good morning. Let's spend the day reading together. A couple of videos ago I chatted through my summer TBR, and one of the books on the TBR that I was really looking forward to reading was The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. It really caught my eye when I was looking around for books to read this summer because I've been really loving thrillers at the minute. I've been reading a lot of thrillers over the past couple of months, and so the idea of combining a summer read with that thriller genre that I've really been enjoying is something that I found really fun and something that I am now really looking forward to. The book centres around a lavish wedding in Nantucket between Benji and Amelia. Benji comes from a particularly wealthy family. It is his family who are essentially hosting the wedding, and his mother is a famous author. She writes murder mysteries, crime books, thriller books, so very much the genre of this book is the genre that Benji's mum, who is called Greer, writes. And essentially the centre of the plot of this book is that the morning of the wedding, the maid of honour, Merritt, is found dead on the beach by the bride. And from there, I believe the book essentially follows the investigation of figuring out what happened to Merritt. And it looks at uncovering these secrets and the kind of rumblings that are going on in the background within the family and between the characters themselves. And I believe the main focus of the book is Benji's family, the Wimbrey family. Another reason why this book caught my eye and I'm really excited to read it is that it has been made into a Netflix series. It's one that I remember everybody talking about at the time, and for some reason it's one that I just haven't gotten around to watching myself. So I thought it would be a really fun experience, now that it's summer as well, to read this book and then watch the series. That's something I've actually never done with a book before. I've never had that experience of reading a book first and then watching the series. I have done it the other way around, like with normal people, but I've never read the book first. I just think it'd be a really interesting experience because I'm very much someone who pictures a book as I'm reading it. So it'll be really interesting to see whether what I'm picturing and the kind of vibe of the characters that I have interpreted from the book is gonna then translate to the series. Anyway, with that being said, it's time to start reading The Perfect Couple. It's also pretty early in the day, so I'm gonna spend a full day reading, bring you along with me. I just have a lot of time to read today and I'm really looking forward to this one. Okay, so I'm just about to start page 35 of the book, so I thought I'd share my initial thoughts with you. So far I'm really enjoying the structure of the book. I know we're still quite early on, but so far it's been different to the structure that I was expecting going into this book, which I'm really enjoying that it's kind of surprised me in terms of the structure. We're flicking between different perspectives, so far we have gone between Karen, who is Amelia's mum, the bride's mum. We've gone to Greer, the groom's mum, and also to the chief who's investigating what has happened. And not only that, we're also starting to flick between different timelines. So far we've gone from the morning of the wedding to the day before the wedding, and I have a feeling that we might jump between a few more timelines and maybe even go further back in time. And I really love when a thriller doesn't take that linear, or I guess the word is chronological, approach to the timeline of the book. I think it just works really well when at the centre of the book like there's a mystery to be solved. I think it just means that you're very much piecing it together and kind of jumping around, maybe like the chief might be doing as he's investigating the case. It kind of adds a little bit more to the confusion of the book in a good way, in that you're really trying to understand what has happened, and it's all very curious and very much full of mystery. Also, in terms of characters, the character Greer, who is, like I said, the Grimm's mum, is really interesting me and is someone I'm really looking forward to knowing more about in this book, because when I was reading her section, I kind of liked her as a character. I initially just felt like she was a nice character. She was kind of focused on her guests and preparing for the wedding and all of that kind of thing. But now that I'm hearing a few more perspectives, particularly the perspective of Karen, I'm kind of starting to question her character a little bit, question her kindness, question her intentions, and I feel like there's more than meets the eye with Greer. I'm just not 100% sure about her, and I feel like that's how we're meant to feel. I think she's going to be a character with a lot of layers to her, and I think a character like that always, again, works really well in a thriller. I think it might be time for another cup of tea and to maybe switch up where I'm reading. Okay, I'm now just a touch further into the book, and the chief is still conducting initial interviews with each of the characters. I feel like there are quite a few characters being discussed, so it's definitely taking me a minute to get in my head who is who and who is who in relation to the other characters in the book. I do find that often when a mystery is a little bit of a whodunit, there are often quite a lot of characters introduced specifically at the beginning before we kind of focus in on a few characters towards the end. And so I always find that it takes me a little bit of a minute to understand the characters. And so it's probably not unusual that it's taking me a little bit of time to get to grips with that. And actually, in the long run, it probably does work well. Now that I'm getting a little bit more used to the genre, I feel like it does work well in a mystery book when there are a lot of characters. It does feel quite natural that lots of different characters are being introduced. I do feel like out of all of the characters at the moment, Greer and her husband feel like the most suspicious characters. I feel like they've got a lot of secrets going on that's probably going to be quite central to the plot, or just very interesting to read. So I'm very much keen to learn more about them and understand what is going on behind the kind of image that they're presenting to everyone. Just as I was reading, a very exciting bookish delivery has arrived. These are a few of the books that are on my July TBR that I ordered the other day. I'm so excited that these have arrived, so I thought I'd chat through what's just come in this delivery. Okay, first is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, which is a book I have been seeing on TikTok and been really wanting to read. I saw it first a couple of months ago and I thought, perfect, I will save it for summer, and now that it's July, perfect time to start reading this. So this is a story that happens over 6 summers, and it follows the story of Percy and Sam as they spend summers together whilst they're both at their family's lake houses in a place called Barry's Bay. From what I've read on the blurb of this book and seen online, I believe we follow their story as they go from being really good friends to falling in love, and then I believe there is a misunderstanding that happens in one of these summers that kind of pulls them apart from one another, and we then follow the piecing together of their relationship after that, or the effects of that on their relationship with one another. One thing that I really like about the sound of the book is that it happens over 6 years, 6 summers, like I said. I really like when a book, particularly a romance book, spans over that amount of time. It was the same with Normal People, which I think I've already mentioned in today's video. I just loved that book. But I really liked that in Normal people because it gave us a really deep sense of their relationship. So I like that it's the same with this one. I also believe this is another one that's potentially being made into a series, which now seems to be a theme in this video, but I'm really looking forward, if that's the case, to reading another book and then having the experience again of watching that book be turned into a series. So I think this actually might be the one that I will read next after The Perfect Couple, because I'm just really keen to read this one and I feel like I have been for a while. Next is actually another one by Carly Fortune. It is One Golden Summer. This book is set in the same world as Every Summer After, which I really love. I already love the aspect of these books taking part in the same world, especially if after reading Every Summer After it's a world that I really like. It'll just be fun to re-enter that world in another book by Carly Fortune. So this book follows Alice, who returns to Barry's Bay with her grandmother. Alice hasn't been to Barry's Bay in quite a few years, and the last time that she was there she photographed a boy called Charlie, who she now years later reconnects with at Barry's Bay. So I believe they spend a lot of their summer together and reconnect, and we follow their relationship and their dynamic change. So that really does sound like another good romance read to me. And thirdly, switching up the genre, is The Women by Kristen Hanna. I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, it was either last month or the month before, and it was a 5-star read. I found it such an insightful, brilliantly written book. It's one that I would really recommend to anybody, particularly anybody who's looking to get into the historical fiction genre like I was before I read it. And because I enjoyed that book so much, I really have been wanting to pick up another one by Kristen Hanna. So The Women follows an army nurse in the Vietnam War, and we follow her experience throughout the war, and then I believe we follow her experience when she returns home from the war. And I'm sure if it's half as good as The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, it's going to be one that I find really insightful and just a brilliant read. One thing that now I'm reading more and I'm kind of finding authors that I really like their books is that it's really nice to then pick up another book from that same author and go into a book feeling like it's going to be a good one. I feel like it's nice to find those reliable authors for you. One of those for me is Claire Douglas, because I absolutely love her thrillers, and I feel like having read The Nightingale and found it such a brilliant read that I'm going to feel the same about Kristen Hanna. So those are all the books that have arrived. Really looking forward to reading each one of those. But for now, let's get back to reading The Perfect Couple. It looks like it's going to really rain. I thought today was going to be like a summer reading video because for some reason, well, it's been really warm recently, so I just expected it to be the same today, and it is warm, but it keeps going in and out of rain. So it's becoming more of a cozy read with me. I thought I would sit in the garden and read, but it really does look like it's gonna rain. So I think back to my reading nook, back to my room, back to The Perfect Couple. I'm so keen to see what happens in this story with all of these characters. Okay, so I've been sitting here and reading for quite a while, and I'm now on page 220, and it's becoming pretty clear that every character in this book has a secret of some sort. It's really interesting because at the beginning of this book, and I think I might have briefly mentioned it earlier when it came to Greer and her husband Tag's relationship, that the family, the Wimbury family, are very much people who are trying to portray a certain image of themselves to the people around them, of this kind of ideal, stereotypically perfect family. But as I'm reading more and more of this book, it feels like that image is very much something that they're presenting to try and hide any sort of secrets that are going on behind the scenes, which feels like a lot of secrets at this point, and that image that they're trying to project probably isn't an accurate representation of the family, because there really are so many secrets that they're hiding from one another and from that image that they're projecting. But that's quite an interesting dynamic, because I feel like even in the conversations with the chief, they're still trying to portray that image and trying to kind of hide behind it. So I'm finding that a really interesting part of the whole investigation. information, because it means that they're a bit resistant to give information throughout the book. What's also interesting about when each of these secrets are being revealed is that I'm really interested to see which are red herrings or which are really central to the investigation and to what happened to Merritt. Greer actually mentioned earlier in the book the concept of red herrings, so I feel like because that was mentioned earlier, that was maybe a little bit of foreshadowing of the idea of red herrings being very important in this book. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's a classic case of reading a mystery and feeling like everything everybody says is really important. But usually it is, and I feel like the concept of red herrings probably is quite important in this book. So I'm quite a bit of the way through this book now, which is really nice. It's so lovely that I've had so much time to read today and that I woke up so early, so I've been able to really make my way through this book today, which has been so fun. And one reason I think I'm enjoying the experience of reading this thriller so much is because we're really doing such a deep dive into each of the characters, which I'm surprised to hear myself say, because usually I wouldn't necessarily enjoy that aspect of a thriller. In the past I've read thrillers where we do a real character deep dive and kind of just been really keen to get back to the relevance of all the deep diving that we're doing and understanding what has happened with the investigation at hand. But with this one, I'm really enjoying it. I think I just feel fascinated mainly by the characters in this book. They are so well written, but the characters themselves, they really are quite different from one another, and because a lot of the main characters in this book are trying to present that image that I mentioned earlier, it's really interesting to then see what is going on behind the scenes of that image that they're presenting, if that makes sense. And I'm really enjoying the fact that I am enjoying the character focused aspect of this book. It's really nice to have that experience because, like I said, I've not necessarily experienced that before with the thriller, where I'm really fascinated by the characters and their stories as much as the investigation itself. So I'm really enjoying having that experience with this book. And because I've had so much time to read today, I think I am going to be able to make my way through a good portion of this book, if not finish it. I mean, I have a good few hours left in the day, so I think I might be able to finish it. So if I do, I'll be back later today with my full review of this book. It is quite a few hours later now. I've been sitting and reading for all of the afternoon and I have finished The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. I've also spent a little bit of time trying to figure out my full thoughts on this book so that I could give a full review of it. And I think I've got them together, so I'm gonna give you my review of this book and let you know my thoughts and feelings around it and try not to give any spoilers along the way. So let's start with what I really enjoyed about this book. So like I mentioned earlier, I really enjoyed that this book was very character focused and that we really did a deep dive into the characters themselves. I found their stories and the backstory in general to the wedding really interesting, and I liked how that gave context to what might have happened to Merritt. And because it was very character driven right until the end, there were lots of little turns and also some pretty big turns as well along the way with each of the characters, that because of that made for a really interesting read. I definitely felt like the pace in terms of the investigation itself was maybe a little slower than I normally like, and maybe as well in this book I would have maybe liked it to be a little bit faster, but because I really did enjoy learning more about the characters, it didn't matter too much in terms of my reading experience, and especially because each of those bits of context had their own twists and turns and reveals, I still felt like I was getting that that kind of twistiness of a thriller that I really enjoy. I also really loved the structure of this book. Like a lot of my favourite thrillers, it had that kind of jumpy, I don't know if that's the right word, but that structure where you jump from one perspective to another or one timeline to another, and a lot of my favourite thrillers are written that way, and I really, really enjoy that. It feels like a really good way of keeping me wanting to turn the page, wanting to figure out what happens and to kind of get to the next twist and turn. So I really like how this book was structured. I would say I wasn't necessarily 100% sure about the ending of this book. I obviously won't say any more than that because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. Without saying any more, I wasn't necessarily too sure about how this book ended. Yeah, I actually can't say any more without it being a spoiler, so there we are. And maybe actually after having time to reflect on the book in a couple of days, I will maybe like the ending a little bit more. Yet to figure out necessarily how I feel about the ending. So ultimately, I've been thinking about my rating and I've decided to give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think because I really have had the time today to sit and read and enjoy, I really did enjoy that character deep dive aspect of the book. And even though it was a touch slower paced at times in terms of the investigation itself, and even though I'm not necessarily sure how I feel about the ending yet, ultimately I really did enjoy the experience of reading this book. So 4 stars feels about right to me. And now for something that I'm really looking forward to, and I have been really looking forward to all day, is starting to watch the series. I'd really like to sit down and write my Goodreads review and update my reading journal. I actually have a few books that I need to update in my reading journal, so I would like to spend some time doing that, and I thought it would be really nice to do all of that and then have the series starting whilst I'm doing all of that. I'm so fascinated to see whether what I'm imagining in my head will be translated onto the screen and into the series, so I just think it's a really fun experience. I'm really looking forward to it, so it'll be a lovely way to spend my evening. Before the end of today's video, I really wanted to mention something that I'm really looking forward to in July, because I would love for as many of us as we can to get involved. I have decided over on my book talk and also now on Fable to start a book club together where, like a lot of book clubs, each month we will pick a book together to read and chat about it through the month. So over on my book talk account, Eve's Book Club, we have voted for our book in July and we have picked Funny Story by Emily Henry, which is a book I cannot wait to read. Funny Story follows the character Daphne, who breaks up with her boyfriend after realising that he's in love with his childhood best friend Petra, and one way or another she ends up moving in with Petra's ex-boyfriend Miles, who she feels is probably the only other person who can really understand the situation that she finds herself in. And then we follow how Daphne and Miles's relationship develops. I have only read one Emily Henry book before and I absolutely loved it. It was Great Big Beautiful Life. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. So many of her books are on my big TBR list, and so I'm really glad that this is the book that we picked this month. So I'm going to leave a link in the description to my book talk account where over the month we'll be checking in and chatting about how we have found Funny Story. And I'm also going to leave our Fable book club in the description as well, so feel free to go over there to follow and to join in. I'm pretty new to Fable, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So basically, if you're new to Fable like I pretty much am, the book club is focused around one book at any one time, and the discussion section where you can chat about the book is broken down into chapters. So wherever you are at in the book, you can head into that chapter and share your thoughts and chat all about it. And what's really good about that is that not only can you have a little bit of a deeper chat about the book by going into each chapter or every couple of chapters, but it also means that you're not going to get any spoilers along the way because you'll just go to the relevant parts of the Fable book club where you're at in the book, so everyone can chat freely, and at the end of the month we can all chat about the book in the discussion section at the end. So I really just enjoy the layout of Fable. I think it's a really fun addition to chatting about books here and over on my BookTok account. I think it's just another really fun place to chat about the books we're enjoying and a place where we can all read a book together. So if you're interested, I'll leave everything that I've mentioned in the description, and I'm so excited to read this together in July. So that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. It's turned out to be a very cozy couple of days. Oh, it's just started to really rain now. So yeah, the idea of a summer reading video was just never going to happen these past few days. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really loving making these videos and chatting all about the books that we're all loving together. So thank you so much for being here. It's so lovely, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Thank you so much again for watching. Bye!